And for every British person that has gotten their knickers in a twist, there are sure to be Americans that have gotten their panties in a bunch. Hello, I'm Lawrence, and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond. And one of those memos concerns the clothes we wear, or rather, the words we use to describe them. And since autumn is upon us, what better time to sort our sweaters from our jumpers, our gumboots from our wellies, and our socks from our never mind. You see, there's no getting around it. Clothes are a vital part of our everyday lives. We put them on in the morning and we pull them off at night. I'm still talking about clothes. And so there's a fair bet in some way or another that clothes will come up in your British-American conversations. So here's a look at some of those fashionable word differences. Greenland. While the world's largest island might not be for sale, some of its words most decidedly are. But it was a genuine revelation to me the day I learned that Americans don't use one of them in particular, and that word is anorak. You see, in Britain, the word serves two purposes, okay? So number one, it describes a person that has an interest in very niche subjects, okay? So like binary code, or train timetables, or British and American language differences. And number two, it's a hooded jacket that looks like this. In the case of the second meaning, the word anorak didn't even enter the English language until 1924, when we adapted it from the Greenland Eskimo word anorak, but just with a Q. The bowler hat. Popular, of course, in Britain and America during the Victorian age, and popularised further by the likes of Charlie Chaplin, Laurel and Hardy, and John Cleese, basically anybody with a funny walk. And so because of that, of course, the bowler hat sits with pride in the annals of British and American fashion history. However, nobody can quite agree on the origin of the name itself. Some theorists suggest that it might be linked to a man by the name of John Bowler of Surrey, England, who owned a sort of hat manufacturing company in the 1800s. Furthermore, Britain and America can't even agree on the name, right? So in the United States, where bowler hat itself is not entirely absent, many Americans will refer to this hat as a derby hat, or should I say derby hat. Now, if any Americans are wondering why British people pronounce it derby, consider your own pronunciation of sergeant. English is just crazy. Now, if you want further evidence of that, the American use of derby hat or derby hat actually originated in England, taking its name from English racehorsing events from the 1800s. Okay, so two things at this point. I am horrible at segues, and speaking of shoes, for those of us that are absolute fitness fanatics, I mean, I try to get in, an hour of walking every month or so. For those of you who are fitness fanatics or just, like to undermine your credibility, you've probably worn shoes like this at some point in your life. In Britain, probably owing to the idea that you train in them, these are usually known as trainers. Of course, as a boy, and this is quite embarrassing, I believe that they got their name from Clark Kent, who outran a train while wearing said shoes. But no, the word trainers is not to be found in the state of Kansas, where, as is the case in most of the United States, the word tennis shoes is preferred, even if there's no tennis. Now, this was a genuine revelation to me because as somebody that once dated somebody from America's Northeast, I came here thinking that everybody and their mother, and even their mother, referred to these shoes as sneakers. But it turns out that's more or less exclusive to that particular region and South Florida, apparently. That is a revelation. So in Hawaii, they just say shoes. Okay, so two things at this point. My segues are improving. And speaking of footwear, oh, wellies, a pair of rubber boots, of course, worn only by children and farmers. It's hardly surprising, perhaps, that the word Wellington boots didn't catch on in the United States. After all, the name comes from a most famous British soldier, Arthur Wellesley, otherwise known as the Duke of Wellington. Now, he was most decidedly not a child, but he was also not a farmer. And now that I think about it, Americans are not adverse to naming stuff after British, historical figures. After all, 7 of its 50 states were named after British monarchs. I did a video on that, wait until the end. But in the US, as with our previous entry, America can't seem to make its mind up. Depending on the region, person, or age of the person, you might hear any of the following. So, rubber boots, galoshes, mud boots, rain boots, mucking boots, billy boots, or my favourite, gum boots. Let me know in the comments below which you use, and please include any agricultural experience. Okay, it's time to wrap up warm. As they say on Game of Thrones, Autumn is on its way. It's the other one, winter. Any language anorak worth his or her salt will likely be aware that for every American sweater, the British have a jumper. But language, being the sneaky that it is, has one or two tricks up its sleeve. Pun intended. That was glorious. You see, what I didn't know before moving here is that America has its own item of clothing called a jumper. A sort of sleeveless dress worn over a blouse. The term seems to have entered American English at some point in 1967 as a shortening of the earlier term jumper dress. Now, because I tend to use American English when talking to Americans, I'll probably tell them that I'll wear a sweater in the fall and a jumper when I'm home by myself. Don't tell the wife about that one. And speaking of latest clothes, bring on the second greatest segue of all time. I just did it in the past. There's nothing actually to bring on. There's plenty to take off, though. Let's go. But while my American cousins might well be familiar with this entry, the word knickers is nonetheless quite rare in the United States, where the preferred usage might be something like, underwear or the universally adored panties. And for every British person that has gotten their knickers in a twist, there are sure to be Americans that have gotten their panties in a bunch. Now, as chance would have it, both got their start in the mid to late 19th century, and both originally referred to a male garment, with knickers a shortening of knickerbockers, and try bringing that back in 2019. And that is the perfect segue. Bring on our final entry, or pull it off. Still talking about clothes. Men's underwear is absolutely stupid, and there's no greater example of that than these. A distinctive pair of duds that are worn exclusively by retired gentlemen who've just given up. Now, in Britain, if one doesn't refer to them simply as underpants, they'll call them out quite specifically for what they are. Y-fronts. Get it? Because there's an inverted Y on the front. Clever. But in the United States, the garment is known by several names, right? So starting from least hilarious to most, they are jockey shorts, jockey briefs, and this is the best of all, tighty whities. So I'd love to tell you that I'm wearing a pair as we speak, but it is far too hot in here for underwear, so the kilt will have to suffice. On that note, I'm going to ruddy well clear off and put on a jumper. Not that kind, it's definitely too hot for a sweater. Until next time, I hope you have a good week, and I'll see you soon. No, you'll see me, other way around. Where on earth? Oh, hello. Thank you for watching this latest episode of Lost in the Pond, and if you like what you see on this channel, why not consider becoming a patron of Lost in the Pond like these fine folks that you see here to the right. One of the perks of doing so is you get to join my Patreon-only live stream every Tuesday night, no matter how big or small your pledge. So if you want to support this channel and help make it grow larger than the sun, then go to patreon.com/lostinthepond. Now, if you like this video, there are two more things that you should do at this very moment. Firstly, share it with the entire world, and secondly, check out this related video. I highly recommend it, but please, binge responsibly. And finally, if you've not had the chance to do so, you can subscribe to Lost in the Pond in a very satisfying way by punching my stupid little face. Until the next video, goodbye.